Hi, I'm Patricia Raskin, and I'm here today with Ed Drosda, who's the small business doctor. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Patricia. How are you doing today?
Good, good.
Great to be here with you.
What is the small business doctor?
The small business doctor is a business coach and advisor. I work with small businesses. My function is to help folks diagnose and treat their underlying business ills.
Just like physical, only this is business.
Yeah, but business is comprised of people, so let's face it, health is important no matter what we're looking at.
Yes, very important. What's the difference, Ed, between being a coach and being a consultant?
That's a great question. You know, a lot of folks have a difficult time grasping that there is a difference, first of all. They surmise that a coach and a consultant are one and the same, but they are distinctly different. Let me start by saying that a coach is a facilitator and a consultant is a technical expert. We can use that as a jumping off point.
Interesting. Do you have some of the consultant background, though, as a coach?
I actually do. I spent a number of years when I first started my business as a project manager. And in that capacity, my purpose was to come in, run projects for folks, expected deliverables, a project timeline, so on and so forth. So in that capacity, you would have called me a technical expert. And on the coaching side, of course, I can take advantage of that because it helps to keep me on track, being familiar with project management, discipline, and so on and so forth.
How did you decide to go into this? I mean, you were in business as a manager, and then you decided to move into becoming a coach on your own.
Yeah, the reason I decided to be a coach is I felt that I had more to offer to people in small business by reaching out, helping them to capitalize on their strengths and to achieve their goals. As a consultant, you're literally just doing a task. There's nothing wrong with that. There are things that we can't do, don't want to do, or unable to do, and that's great. So a consultant can come in and perform and execute those things for us. Myself, I was more interested and engaged by helping people create possibility and to help them identify that they really had more inner strength and resources than they ever
So
did.
as a coach, then, when you work with someone, do you give them action steps and then follow up and find out how they're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. They may not appreciate it, but there is homework and there is accountability. The coaching process is not one that simply says, you're doing great today, I'll see you, next week or what have you. There's a great deal of accountability involved, and people are expected to stay the course.
How do you find the right coach?
I believe that there's a number of elements, but one of the most important is a fit, the confidence in the client and the coach that there is the ability to trust each other. With all due respect, the client's going to open up and tell some very deep, dark secrets about their business and themselves in the course of the coaching relationship. So finding someone with whom you're comfortable is first and foremost.
Ed, give us an example of an issue you've dealt with as a coach and how you've helped that person work through it.
Well, there's such a wide variety of things. One of the roles that I serve in as a coach is to be a kind of a mini board of directors, if you will. And many individuals find that they benefit from someone to simply throw ideas off of. The key here is that they really have the knowledge and the expertise about what it is that they're looking to accomplish, but they really need someone to help them frame from a different perspective. They know what they're doing, kind of the forest for the trees thing. They're in the thick of it, but they need somebody slightly higher elevation, I say about 10,000 feet in my case, to come in and give them a perspective that they don't have so that they can approach things from a different angle than they're accustomed to.
Right. So again, an example. Would it be somebody who is having difficulty getting clients? Would it be an example of someone working with a difficult client? Would it be someone who just is disorganized and isn't getting everything done they need to, or all of that?
Any and all of those things have come to play. A lot of engagements that I work on revolve around workplace personal dynamics. The individuals within the workplace are not able to confidently and comfortably work towards common goals. And oftentimes the deep-rooted cause is because there's some sort of emotional disturbance of some sort that has been allowed to fester but not been brought to the surface. And I know that the analogy might sound a little bit harsh, but lancing the boil is very important. And once that happens, the opportunity for healing begins. So getting information out there, getting people to communicate openly about what's going on. The reality is, in a workplace, our inability to communicate interferes with our ability to perform and to
I
achieve
think
our
in
goals.
most situations.
Well, of course, as in business and life are one and the same. So.
Yeah. So when you work with people, do you dig deeper, meaning that, let's say someone is afraid or they don't have enough clients and they panic. Do you work on a deeper emotional level with them to figure out where that's coming from, or not really?
Yes, I do. One of the distinctions that we have to make as coaches is that we are not therapists. And that is a very important distinction. In fact, on numerous occasions, I've had occasion to refer people for therapy, to suggest it. And I draw my own line such as this. What is in the past and what made you who you are today is in the past. What you are
doesn't have to determine the future.
Right. What you are today and going forward is that which I deal with. So if in fact you're afraid today, we look at it in terms of today. It's not a matter of what happened in your childhood or what happened in your first, your second marriage. This is about who you are, what you're doing today.
And sometimes all it takes is someone like you to say, okay, we know you're afraid, but what are 3 things you can do today? Which helps to pull that person up out of that kind of, it's like a broken record.
Right. Yeah, I think people oftentimes need a slight little bit of prodding, urging, or cajoling to get to that next level. I firmly believe that everybody has the capacity to do what it is they want to do, but sometimes they just don't see it, they can't access it. They can't
Or
sort it out.
sometimes what they've been doing isn't working now. Sometimes things change.
It was right once upon a time, it's not right today. Absolutely.
And how do you deal with that? And so that's another issue.
And, in those cases, it's really a matter of looking at the handwriting on the wall,
Do you find it's more about the situation and what's happening? As we said, it could be an economic situation, it could be that the tide has turned, it could be the technology's changed, or is it more people issues, or is it both?
It's a combination. There's external and internal factors, and I think that the most important thing is to build a strong foundation in the client, for the client themselves to have a firm belief in themselves, to be very clear about what their goals and intentions are. With that, they're better equipped to deal with the external factors, which can include their people that they work with, people around them, the environment, the economy, so on and so forth.
So you really have to take all of the factors into consideration.
But the most important one is for the individual to be prepped and prepared to work with the rest of those things. Oftentimes, at the expense of a business, a person will be looking at external factors, neglecting the fact that really the issue lies with them. So first and foremost, the individual.
Sometimes in the way they think or the way they're acting or their perceptions.
A whole host of things, but the inability to really be clear about who you are, what you're looking to accomplish, and what the path is to get there is a recurring theme. And people are very quick to blame the economy or the lack of resources or the competitor, so on and so forth. And that's not usually a reasonable excuse. If they have not fully vetted themselves first, then I encourage them to look inside before they go out there.
Ed, do you deal a lot with entrepreneurs, or do you deal more within the corporate setting or small business setting, or all of that?
I work with the small business folks, some of whom are not entrepreneurs. I do not work with corporate settings at all. I will say quite simply that because I invest my time and energy into my clients, I wish to work with those who have ownership over the outcome. In the corporate setting, I feel that's not the case because here we talk about external factors. The remote headquarters office calls up and says, "Patricia, by the way, all that work you did, well, we're changing our plan." That is something I just don't choose to do. So for me, small business folks, whether they be entrepreneurial in spirit or otherwise.
And we have more small businesses now, I think, than we've ever had. And
Right.
Rhode Island has a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
Tremendous entrepreneurial spirit here.
Yep.
What would be one or two things you would advise to people in small business or entrepreneurs that you see over and over that could be a stumbling block? What might be something proactive you could do?
I believe it's something really important for people to keep in mind is the shiny penny syndrome. I have talked to many people who are opening up the second or third storefront before the first is even open. And while I admire ambition, and I'm sure there are those many publications and famous book writers who have said, encourage, and shoot for the moon, and so on and so forth. I have a different perspective. I don't doubt that you can get there, but you have to get there in a fashion that you can sustain. The people that I have encountered that are opening up the third storefront before the first have unequivocally, time after time, failed. And I attribute that to the fact that they haven't built a strong foundation. They haven't assessed what they had in mind. They haven't put it out there, a prototype, if you will. And they're distracted from what they really need to do. It's a recurrent theme.
Jumping too quickly.
Jumping in too quickly, or just simply not paying attention to what you've got right in front of you. It's lovely to contemplate and to realize expansion, but how can you expand upon something that hasn't even yet been formulated? And surprisingly, a lot of people look at that and they go, well, because I know that it's a great product and I can attract attention, and while all those things are true, and believe me, I don't go out of my way, I do not in any way, shape, or form discourage people. I ask them merely to recognize the fact that their ability to sustain is far different than to ignite the fire at the get-go.
Give us another tip. I mean, one is, again, avoid the shiny penny syndrome. What would be another one?
Another very important thing for me is the word intention. So many people that I encountered simply have not taken a good hard look at what it is they intend or desire to do. The idea of intention is great because it grounds us. It gives us a place to fall back to when we're faced with the shiny penny syndrome. We'll go back and go, well, what was my intention in the first place? And while intention might sound like something like expanding and having 10 or 15 stores or franchising your business or what have you, usually there's something more fundamental than that got you into it. Before you went to that, there was some fundamental rooted intention.
Give us an example of an intention.
The intent, I'll use marketing as an example. Intention, my intent is to, for myself, for example, I was an avid networker. Networking being conceived of as that where you show up at events and you make frequent visits to events where people are hanging out, promoting their business, selling, interacting, so on and so forth. And I got to the point where I burned out. And I realized that my intention wasn't being tended to. My intent was to give people an opportunity to know who I am, because in my business it's about relationships. People have to, as I said, be comfortable with the concept of a business coach. So I felt that in order to do that more effectively, my intention was my intent, and I wasn't reaching it. So I modified the way that I went about networking. But when I really looked at my intent and I looked back at what I was doing, I found that they were totally not aligned. Okay, the intention of giving people an opportunity to know me was not what networking was about. It was more of an exercise in, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you, you know, it wasn't really fulfilling my intention.
Which would be to network and meet people, to let them know who you are and gain clients.
In my case, my networking has moved to what I call the front of the room. You know, more presentations, things of that sort, where people have an opportunity to get to know me, because it's getting to know me is what's going to lead them to have a consideration for working with someone like me. So it's a shift of gears. It's a change in the way that I approach it, which is aligned with my intent, versus the other, which I think I probably did because I hadn't thought about my intent. I did it because that's what you do. You know, we go out and go to these large events.
Right, right. So what you're saying is, once you have a focus and a purpose, you want your actions to line up with those.
That's
in
correct.
everything you do. You know, even if, and this happens a lot, you might meet someone for lunch, for networking, and it may not amount to anything, but you still had your purpose, and
Right.
you can always say to them, well, this didn't work out, but who do you know?
Right, right. Yeah, the intention is, as I say, it's a great, it's an anchor. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Intent is a great anchor. And it's not to say it can't change, or that you may not have tens upon hundreds of intent. Each of them being aligned with those intentions will allow you to get the most out of that action that you're taking. So I think intent has to come first. To me, it's a very big, very important concept.
Intent really sounds like purpose.
Intent and purpose are probably one
Very
of the
similar.
same. Yeah. I'm sure there's some other buzzword out there for it too, but I haven't heard that one yet. But
When you work with clients, how much of what you work with is, again, their relationships with other people? In other words, not getting along or not getting their point across, or their frustration in making it happen because of relationship?
in a business, of course, relationships are important, and the object is to frame it around the business. Is the business going to be able to survive your relationships? Are your dysfunctional relationships going to serve that business well or not? It's not so much about you and I don't get along. It's about how does that impact or serve the mission of the vision of the business. So you want to take it outside of the notion of the individuals. It's not so much about Patricia and Ed.
It's about
the that dynamic
yes,
and
exactly.
the business, and what has that done, or what is that doing to the business.
Do you ever advise a client to release a customer or someone they're working with because it's just not going to work?
Not without making a tremendous effort
Okay.
to see if there is a way to identify what is causing it. There's two different things there. There is elucidating the cause and assessing whether or not there's an interest in doing something about it. A lot of people have gotten to the point where they've given up and their mind is made up. And quite frankly, when people get to that point, that's it. I mean, it's very difficult to convince someone who is absolutely committed to this course of action and say, hey, but things really aren't as bad as you think. No, their mind's made up. And there's no need to try to change that, because it's always going to be hanging over their head. It's always going to be at the back, at the periphery of their vision. But not without making that effort, at least to identify what the cause is, so that logical, reasonable people can make a decision whether or not it's something they can pursue and continue on with.
What are some of the other things that you deal with clients? I mean, we talked again about the shiny penny, where people see the future almost too quickly, and we've talked about relationships. What about procrastination? Do you deal with that a lot with your clients, or not so much?
Procrastination is something that shows up in the course of conversation, in the course of engagements. It certainly has an impact on people, myself included. I certainly know what procrastination is about. The object, in my eyes, the object of procrastination, or the intention around procrastination, is to embrace it. You're doing it for a reason. It's not right, it's not wrong, it is, but why is it? And is it the object that you're avoiding, or is it something more global than that? It can't be avoided. It
Yeah.
must first be understood.
A lot of experts say that procrastination is actually not people being lazy, but that they either are perfectionists, so they want to do it right, or they don't want to do it at all, or they want absolute control. And so it's if it can't work, then they put it off.
Right. I think that's certainly those two things are components of it. I think there's also the possibility that people have a fear of going to a certain place, doing a certain thing. They may really have difficulty with time management. They may be distracted by so many things that they're incapable.
Or they may have gotten rejected enough that they're wondering if it's going to still work.
That's possible.
That's another.
Absolutely.
That's another.
Absolutely.
So, what's the greatest reward for you, Ed, in working with your clients?
Oh, absolutely, is to see people be able to, step back and look at what they've accomplished and to say, I did that. And that really, to me, is the beauty of it. It is about the client. It is about their ability to do these things. An ability they always had, but as I said earlier, they may not have access to it. They may not understand that they can do it. They need the nudge, the cajoling, so on and so forth to get them there. But when they realize that, some would call it the light bulb, or some would call it that aha moment, or whatever you want to call it. That to me is the epitome of accomplishment.
Yeah. And I'm sure that when people work with you or they work with coaches, they realize how important that is. It's like a person in sports who has a coach.
Right.
How would they do if they didn't have that person behind them, or
Right.
helping them?
Right.
I mean, it really has that same kind of analogy or connotation. I mean, you're there, you're behind them, supporting them, but you're
Right.
also helping to steer, and you're seeing where the twists and turns are.
Right. It's that 10,000-foot perspective, I believe, that you're not on the offensive line, thankfully.
Talk about the advantages that you see of people like yourself who were in corporate, who worked for other people, and are now in small business.
I think that for me, the idea of small business is, at a personal level, is definitely very fulfilling. Whether I win, lose, or draw, I have ownership over the outcome. And I think that's extremely important to me and to most small business people. Needless to say, there's more small business than there is larger business in general, and that is on a number of people basis. And it really kind of embodies the spirit of the of the human element, and I think it really gives us the greatest opportunity. I think it's a great place to be.
And when you work with people, do you work with them over the phone? Do you work with them in person?
We can, in person, over the phone. The thing that matters most with a coach and their clients is the ability to connect. And some people, it's possible to connect with over the phone, and because of geography, obviously, there's no option, there's no choice. But the preference for me, anyway, would be to work face to face, and most of my colleagues would feel the same way. But working over the phone, working in groups, those things are all options that are available. Again, it depends on the dynamic of the relationship between the clients and the coach.
We have a couple minutes left. So again, could you share an experience with a client that really helped them through your guidance?
It's kind of peculiar to take a negative example, but the negative examples are as important as the positive. In fact, over the course of time, this negative example is extremely positive. That's a case where two young gentlemen came together, one a technical expert, one more of a managerial administrative resource. The two of them had a incredible idea, a concept. And together they had the ability to bring this concept to market. Mm-hmm. What they lacked was the interpersonal dynamic to be able to pull this off. But they had tried and tried and tried because they felt compelled by the concept. They felt compelled, shiny object in this case, they felt compelled that it was going to supersede their difficulties. Slowly but surely it chiseled away at their forward motion. And by the time the three of us got together, the concept was basically sitting in a relatively immobile place. The end result of our time together was that they dissolved their partnership. They both went on to be extremely successful. They remain friends.
What happened to the idea?
It basically died on the vine, and it was okay. I say that this negative is a positive because for the two of them, they both went on to do something that was truly meaningful, very successful, each of them in their own places, very successful at what they did. But they were able to walk away with lessons learned about themselves and also about the importance of partnerships, what that means, the dynamic and how important it is to make something work. The reality is that they probably would have continued on trying to make this work, driven as they were by the concept. They might have gotten somewhere. They could have. If they had, it's, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it would have been sustainable. I sincerely doubt it. Neither of them are going to be happy. They weren't going to find that place in that relationship. But the outcome was a positive one. And they needed to have somebody help them take a look at what was going on, basically to hold up a mirror.
Yeah, so it might have been that just the dynamic of their relationship wasn't going to allow this concept to work with them together.
With the two of them, it wouldn't work.
With the two of them. Maybe if they'd gotten other people involved.
They tried that too.
Interesting example. We're just about out of time, Ed. So tell us your information, your contact information.
Yes, my website is www.thesmallbusinessdoctor.com. Don't know why I hesitated on that one.
I love that title, The Small Business Doctor.
And I can be reached at ed@thesmallbusinessdoctor.com. That is my email address. And I am located in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. And certainly reach out to Rhode Island, Southeastern Mass, basically anywhere there's phone service for that matter.
Thank you so much. Ed Drosda, The Small Business Doctor.
Thank you, Patricia.
All right.
I appreciate it.
I'm Patricia Raskin. Thank you again, Ed.
Thank you.